So today, you guys, in Intentional Metalsmithing, our chapter is hollow forms. This is one of my very favorite chapters. Oh my gosh. I love it. It can be as complex as you want it. It's so beautiful. It's done in layers. What did I bring over here? Oh, I brought over just some samples of things that I have just as hollow forms. And then I want to talk to you guys today about how to get your shapes. And then I want to talk to you guys about literally building it. And then I'm going to build a good size one for you guys. So I just brought out some shapes here. You guys can see it. And it's like, even from something like this is a hollow form. You know, this one actually is a little hollow form. I made this from a tube. So you can order tubes in and just set it on the side like it's a bezel. I love making the rounds, and this is the next chapter with the, you know, with all using your scraps. This is one of my very favorite shapes. I see it as a yoga breath. You know, it just, I use it in all ways. So I have a standard form made, and here's just a square. But so if I'm using some of my shapes, and here's a hollow form here too. This one's open, but hollow form, and you're setting them. So these can be the trickiest. I think when Christina was in my workshop in Mexico, she told me she didn't like hollow forms. She was like, darn. I mean, they can be tricky, you know what I mean? Or they can be easy. But, you know, one of the fun things that I started doing, which, oh my gosh, I'm looking so much forward to going back in and there's Chris. Hi, Chris. I was thinking about you when you got up. Love your hair.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my, it's just that it's hot, but it's so pretty.
Thank you.
I miss seeing everyone in person.
Me too.
So
I miss seeing you in person.
I know, I am. I think I'm going to do, well, I'm doing Barb Solemn at Vivian Magoo that I'm really excited about. So,
cool.
Yep. So I was talking about hollow forms, and I'm like, you know, so the cool thing is that hollow forms could be super simple. They can be hard. I want to show you guys this piece that I just finished. I was like, oh my gosh, thank God I was working on hollow forms. So if you see these pieces right here, you know, it's like I'm making these circular hollow forms like this, but, you know, maybe I don't have both sides, my rings on. And then I'm actually etching them out. That's something, you know, so it's like the things you can do with your hollow forms, you know, is limitless, which is why I love hollow forms so much. So they can be so complex. Here's a piece, you know, here's a couple pieces that I have put together here. And I don't know, you know, some of the things I want to start working with, I did these beautiful rings that literally were 3 of them, and they came out like this. And there was one more, you know, and it's like you can do these large, small layers. So how do I get my shapes for these? I'm going to show you guys. So I actually am cutting them out with plexiglass. I just realized right now, I don't have my plexiglass with me because I have to buy new plexiglass. But this is at Home Depot. You can get sheets of plexiglass. This is a pretty thick one. You don't really need it that thick. This is the thin plexiglass. Hardware stores and Home Depot have the plexiglass. So you can do some really complex shapes. And, you know, when talking about doing complex shapes, I'm going to show you how you get your shapes, right? You could get them online. You could print them out. I just like using, I have a couple like this, Turkish designs. I'm old fashioned, right? Persian designs, but you can get shapes like this online. And you can see one of these shapes came right from here. These are on I actually have a list of books on Amazon that, you know, if you guys want to find any of these books, but this shape right here is this. See? So it's like there's all kinds of shapes inside here that are so interesting. Okay, so once I get my shape, what do? I take tissue paper, like the old days, tape it on there, trace it out, right? Then I take the tissue paper and I E6 or not E6000, rubber cement it to my plexiglass. Let it dry, smooth it in, let it dry, saw it out. Now, you guys know do you guys know about sawing plastic? It's fun sawing plastic. So when you're sawing plastic, a couple things. One, I remember Robert Danzig has these saws for plastic, which I still had some of them. So I use them. There are jeweler saws that are used to cut plastic, but no, I just use my regular jeweler saw. When I'm in there cutting my, if I'm cutting, now I've got my design on there, I'm gonna cut my plexiglass, just like I cut silver. You cannot go fast. If you start speeding up and going fast, your blade is just gonna melt right inside the plastic. So you just need to go nice and slow and take your time. And you can use your silversmithing jeweler saws, just to cut these all out. And if they do get stuck, you learned a lesson. They don't get stuck. Yay, you're getting to be a master, right? But then you have your shape like this. And I'm going to show you guys on this little one. Let me see if I can find this little one. Here it is. I'm going to pull you guys real up close, because once you get your plexiglass shape, oh my gosh, really? Okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, once you guys get your plexiglass shape, oops, don't mean to have you guys look down my shirt. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot I had this today, so I kind of just dressed casual. I know you're not going to be able to see that on here. I wanted to do a small one. I could do this bigger one, but I tell you why I wanted to do this small one. Can you guys see that? What can I put in the background? Let me find something else to put. Oh, there, now you guys can see it. Okay, so I want to show you a small one because smalls are hard to do. Bigs, it's a lot of solid. I want to show you with this tiny one because this is where your challenges are going to come in. I many times use, I recommend using sterling silver bezel wire, but not in this case, because the only thing that's going to go around these bezels are a fine silver that's super flexible. Watch how quickly this bends. See, super flexible. You have to be careful because they'll go out of shape in your studio. But this is a 0.80, and these, really work out. They're so soft. I'm going to be able to bend this around pretty good. Okay, let me get my tools. Is that crooked? Oh my God, if you guys saw my bench, it had such a pleasure to be in my studio. And I know I complained about it last week, but now I'm thinking last week, it was super clean compared to this week. But next week, I think it's going to be really clean. Okay, so this has a lot of undercuts, a lot of really weird shapes. So I'm going to I cut my end off nice and straight. And then I'm going to say, how you do a bezel, you don't want to start right at an end. So can you guys see that? Or do I need to put this up higher? Could you guys see better if it was up higher? Maybe I'll try that. See. You guys can see? Okay.
Yeah, it was better that way. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you, Christine. Okay. So, this is the tricky thing. And sometimes, it'll even get out of shape. So you just have to treat it like a bezel. So I'm going to shape this first piece like this. My hands are going to be in the way, but look at how bendable this piece is. This piece is so bendable, so malleable. I just like using regular. You guys, I know it's hard to see because I am, and this bezel wire is going to fight you to stand up straight. So that's why I want to show you this, because this is the trickiest. I'm getting started. Usually I try to keep my bezel wire short. I don't usually try to have my bezel wire this long, but okay, when I get down to this bottom part, I usually stop and lay it out with my pliers and bring it up this way. You can see I'm getting close. Wait, can you guys see? No, you can't see. See how close I'm getting? Okay. Now I'm going to fit it back on here again. And then, oh my gosh, with this, you guys, and look, I actually had it a little bit the wrong size. you guys will, this is one of my favorite classes. I need to do, this is what I'm teaching with Barb. Just these beautiful, it's kind of reminds me of this Moroccan type of work. There, did you just see how I really got this hugged right up against with all the fine details? So this beautiful 0.80 fine silver bezel wire. This is probably a 1/2 inch. You could use a 1/8 inch, depending on how high you want your box. But the nice thing about it is I can get in here and I can get to all these undercuts. I'm going to double it around so I have it completely finished now. That's my shape. And then, you know, this is where you really can't miss with getting your, you really miss with being exact. So you want to cut it a little bit big. You can see how off balance it's going to be if I just soldered it together like that. So I want to make sure that I have a nice end on here, nice and straight. And of course, you know, when you're doing a circle, oh my gosh, it does not matter the size. Okay, there we go. I'm going to solder it together right here on this end. There's my match. And, you know, then do you guys want me to finish with this one or do you want me to show you a bigger one? So, you know, that one actually, we'll just solder it in. Why not? Okay, I'm just going to solder this in. Get my bezel wire out of the way. Try to clean up a little bit here. Okay. Fine silver, if you have you guys worked with anyone worked with fine silver before? Can take a good amount of heat. I like it. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to do a hard. So as we know, just like the bezels, we're going to do a hard on the side. I'm going to put this with the rest of my silver, or I can use this little piece that I snipped off. I can use this for making granulation on the sides. I like using the fine silver. Now, do you guys need me to use, I was just going to use my acetylene torch, although I do have to get used to using, hang on a second. You guys like the way I work here? I know you guys have the same studio, right? Okay, hang on one second. There it is. Okay. If I'm going to solder with this torch, I've got to go really, I've got a very small flame for this piece here. So I always love my pick soldering. I just grab a little bit. One of them is good enough. I'm going to get in here. Try not to hold my breath. There we go. Oh my gosh, now I'm going to want to do these hollow forms when I'm in Mexico. You guys inspired me. Okay, I've got this cut out. Now I'm going to find my example that's clear. Come on now. Well, then you guys are going to find your example and you're going to put it back inside of there. Make sure everything is tight and set. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to film. I lose things. Especially clear things. Well, at least you guys get to see the real thing, right? So when you're in your studio and you lose things, you know, it's like you go into this right brain and you just lose things. So, okay. So now what you guys are going to do is you're going to put this back inside your piece. I don't have mine present right now because it's clear. So I'm just going to kind of shape it. When you do insert it back in there, now it's nice and solid. So you can rub it on your sandpaper, which is right here. Oh, here it is. Look, found it. Okay, so now I'm going to get everything back inside, just like we do kind of with our stones. There we go. Put this down on here. This bends out of place really easily, so bends out of place easily. So I want to make sure I have all these undercuts, these tiny undercuts, when I start, getting things. Okay, now I just need one side really flat. So I'm going to take my sandpaper with this piece in it, and I'm going to kind of just fold onto this plexiglass in here, and I'm flattening out my sides because this is pretty rough. You know what I mean? It'll start breaking open on you and shaping itself however it wants to. So with this in here, I keep the shape. I'm going to push this out. Put this in a nice, good place. Now I've got my shape. It doesn't matter that the top isn't necessarily shaped the way I want it. I'm going to insert this back in later. See how it kind of goes a little bit on an angle? That's okay. Okay. Now let me get a piece of silver. Put it right here. Let me hammer this down. Okay. And get my screen. You need your little screen. I'm working small, so I'm going to use my little screen. And then after I show you guys this, and I'll show you how to cap it off. And then if you guys have to hit it with your rubber mallet, look at how warped this one is. So let me hit it. You can keep these forever, these screens. Doesn't matter what they look like. But you just want to be close to the end with your piece right here. Okay. All right, now get my spray. And then if you guys have questions, you can put it in there. There we go. This is nice and solid. And if it's lifted a tiny bit, guys, my bezel is lifted just a tiny bit, but I know it's going to flow and sit down. So I'm not that worried about it. Okay, let me warm it up a little bit. And I'm not going to work such a tiny piece. Dry it up. I'm going to use medium solder. Oh, I put in a lot, but that's okay. You don't need that much. I hate wasting solder because I cut my solder. Do you guys cut yours or buy it? You could do either. I know a lot of people like to buy it, but it's so tiny when you buy it. Okay. Whew. And then I'm just going to use it doesn't even matter if, there's a thing where people make sure that they evenly put their solder around everywhere. Once you get it flowing, it's just going to flow. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. I remember when I had taken classes years ago, it's like people want it perfectly all around. You guys try and see how you like it that way, but it's not necessary. And then, of course, just like the regular bezels, I'm going to get up under here, dry it up, get up under here. This, because it's so thin, has such an interesting shape. There's not a lot of people doing these type of shapes like this, because they're tough, and you guys are going to see why. It's like soldering this down. I'm glad I have a chance to show you guys. There are a couple places that are lifted, and you could spend hours working on getting these down. There we go. And it's softer. You want to make sure your brush is in good shape. And then I'm going to turn this and bring it around this way. You just want to hit it very gently to make sure your edges are down. That's it. They're down. Except for right here. Let me get this edge. And you want it to be hot if you're going to put your, whoop. Did you see how that all lifted? Okay. Now I've got to get it back down again. I'm glad things like this happen because then you guys get to see. Everything's down except for this very tip. So I'm going to have to get this hot, bring the solder around. There we go. And just hold it for a little second. There we go. So, you know, it's just a little bit, and you guys can do this with bezels too, but this is fine silver, and fine silver, the bezel wire is fragile and it's a little trickier and it's thin, so you could burn it out really quickly. So you're going to want to do like 90% on the base plate. And this is a 22 gauge base plate. I didn't mean for it to be. I like working with 24. So I'm putting like 90% of my heat on the base plate. And then for the top piece, I am, you know, for this, just the other small amount. So let me pickle this, and then I'm going to show you guys how I'm dropping the top of this on there. You know, how I'm dropping it on. Let me see. Does anyone have any questions right now while I have a minute? Let me see what Christine is saying. Nope, not Christina. Oh my God. Live pick soldering. Yeah. Oh, you love pick soldering. I don't remember how to do any other way. Right, Christina? Me too. It's like, I really love pick soldering. There's a lot of people that love this wire, but I kind of use these. So pick soldering, this is for my bezels. I just do, you know, putting it all inside there, and then it kind of works and flows like wire, like the wire solder does, you know. And then sometimes I have a couple pieces going at the same time that I'm working out. You know, it's nice to really have a couple pieces going, getting it done quicker, getting in that flow. Okay. My pickle is nice and hot. Oh, darn. You know what? I'm going to have to cut this out. Well, I should have had that cut out for you guys. But what I want to show you is I'm looking at this, and I'm going to bend the top of this up like this. This actually could look like an ovary, but it's not. Okay, so now it's actually a flower if you put it a certain way. Okay, I'm looking at my seam all the way across, and I do see I've got to get back in right on this edge and turn it down a little bit more. And then I'm going to have to use the jeweler saw. I don't think you guys need to sit and watch me do the jeweler saw. But you want to make sure your bezel looks exactly the way it's supposed to. And now what you're going to want to do is get on here and just really get it nice and smooth. Push down on it. There. I'm going to have to cut this out with the jeweler saw, but you can see, I can see this is going to be a nice fit. Let me see if I can cut it out with snips just to make it quick. I'll try with snips, you guys. I wouldn't do snips on complex of a pattern. I would do, and the first one I always keep clean. I would do jeweler saw. So it's going to be a bit not very professional looking. And I can clean it up later. And I'm just going to wait to go in to hit this other end. You know how I said that there's an end here that needs to be repaired. So when I go in, I'm just going to get that end repaired. This looks really bad. But I think if I start, what time is it? If I start, yeah, it's 7:30. Let me hit it real quick with the jeweler saw. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. But I think you guys will understand it. And then I just have this last section to show you. But this is fun. I feel like there's so much to be explored with hollow forms. This is in plexiglass, so I can get in here and go pretty quickly. Relax and have your water. You know, you guys, I have a really good, if you guys are in unfolding, there's a really good section right at the beginning. Maybe it's from when I first started and I'm showing using the book and getting patterns and using plexiglass. So that's kind of cool. It shows a lot of. Okay. I'm gonna trim it out. You know how I trim a lot of mine out is on my jeweler's wheel. I get my piece wet. I have a Scotch-Brite. And I can trim out my edges pretty good. You just want to keep it wet if it's cutting. It's getting in there and cutting. Then it doesn't burn your hands. Okay. Voila. Voila. Okay. Now, this is important, you know, this way, this one actually is the back side. No, this one is the top. So this side, your first side is really important. This is the top. So the bottom, you know, sometimes I'll even do hollow forms and put a whole collection together. There's pieces that I like doing that, you know, if I built like 4 of these around and something in the center, you could actually have a beautiful flower. And I do it on a big base plate. Oh, I want to do that tomorrow. This I have to trim out. Let me just finish. This is real time. What it takes. Okay, good. Okay. Now, if you guys will remember, let me close this up so I can make sure. Okay. If you guys remember, you have to have a hole in your piece, right? So this is the front, so I don't want to put a hole here. So I'm actually going to put a hole right in the back plate. Right in the center. If you could put in 2 holes, you're in better shape. There we go. Okay. Get this next to the edge. Okay. Get my spray. Did you guys notice that so the only way you could solder your piece, or the only way you can do this form without putting a hole in there, would be to have your piece completely dry. Isn't that crazy? You know, otherwise it's going to blow on you. So there we go. I'm going to get it dried up. These are really fun, these little small boxes. I'm so excited about doing this with you guys because I really want to get in here and do more of this work like this. Christine has one of the pieces. Okay. Okay, now this is where you have to be a little bit more careful with your solder. You guys can see. So I need to get in here and just be a little bit more careful, be more intentional on my edges. This is where if you do like pick soldering, maybe pick soldering would be nice. You don't want to flood it, although you could, this could be a chance where you see how when I start soldering, you guys, I've been in here soldering all day today, so my brain's not here. Do you guys get that way? Right brain. And I worked all the way up until I got on here with you guys, but maybe you guys were doing your soldering work and you're in the same headspace as me. Okay. I've got my solder around. I'm going to put just one by this back part. Now, remember, I still have the top, which I'm aware of. I still have this top piece right there that I know I have to press down on so it can be soldered, but it's just one little tap. And I decided to wait because it's just a little easy tap. Okay, there we go. Okay. These type of things are where I wish I could just wait for it to completely dry. You know how your solder pops around. So, okay. Okay. I'm going to start from up here because this will give me some nice dried heat. There we go. Look at that. I got it dried without my solder hopping around. So again, I'm going to go probably, this piece is a lot more stable, but I'm still going to do like 70% under and 30% around the sides. This fine silver now is attached to the sterling silver. So I really have no worries that, you know, it's not going to get very hot. I mean, it won't destroy my fine silver piece. It's blended now with the sterling silver and more solid. I just have too big of a piece of silver. You guys probably will want to work with smaller, but I see it. Now I want to get the top of this piece done. Okay, I'm gonna get the top of this piece done. Very gently. Remember this top part right here? Did I lose you guys? No. And then sometimes what I literally do is I bring my solder around just to get it around. This side is a little bit punched in. There's a big undercut here, so it's a little bit tough, but I don't want to burn my piece. So I'm being very, very careful. You can see I have solder all the way on the inside. It's this piece right here that I'm having a little bit of trouble. So I'm going to try to bring this solder around, and you just have to be very careful with your heat.
Susan, you're tipped up and we can't see your work.
Oh, you can't? Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh,
There you go. Much better. Thank you.
okay, good. Thank you for, you know what I'm trying to say. I just don't know what I'm trying to say. Okay. So if I start having a little bit of, you know, if it starts getting hot on me and it's not all the way done, I usually will take it and pickle it. The front looks really nice. The side looks good. This side is a little bit collapsed. The thing you have to worry about is your fine silver breaking away from the top piece. So that's why you want to really go in slow with this work, you know, and make sure you don't get these, doesn't pull away at the sides or the top. So with this piece here, what I'm going to do, what makes it easier is see how I could not get into, let me see if I can get this back again. Hang on. For me, it's always troublesome if, okay, there's my zoom. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm not going to be able to see the chat because Connie called me. So I always have trouble with this. Okay. So I want to show you guys, when you're working with this fine silver, what I would do now at this point, because I have to get in here. See how there's spaces in here? Can you guys see, or is it blurry? So there's spaces in here like this. So what I would do if I can't get at it and pull it around, I would cut in a lot closer, cut this off really close. And then I'm going to get up and under it, and I could just tap this down very gently, and then I'll be able to get in there. But you guys can see the steps that it takes to, for a piece like this, combining it with the fine silver, getting the jeweler saw in, cutting it out. So when you're using that fine silver on top of your metal, it's just a different way of working. So for me, it's like also today I was going to show what I do over this one, so for me, this one is the same. It's easier to see probably, but I soldered the side of this. This is one where I actually rolled the side through the rolling mill. I just rolled sterling silver sheet metal through the rolling mill, and it's done where it's going to sit nice and flush on a piece of silver. This is a piece where it's just a circle. I love circles. I love doing these circles, or they're not so complex. I don't have to have the plexiglass, the shape to it. But then also I can do things like build out, if this were a hollow form, I could build out all these shapes, with my hollow form, building behind it, which that's what I love doing. So, there's so many different things that you can do with your pieces. So it's the same. This one is nice and flat. It's, I sanded the top of this so it sits flush. Once I get this sanded, I'm gonna, flip it over and I'd lay it on another piece. Now you want to also think about this, my top plate. So with my top plate, the top plate will be simple. I might roll it through the mill and get it patterned, but usually I cut the top plate, right to size, the top plate. So this plate underneath, a lot of times I'll do a lot bigger. So if I do this bigger, now I can decide if I want to put granulation down, if I want to put patterning down, if I want to build it out more, put maybe all these little bezel stones around the sides, your design, you can decide whatever you want to do. But when you get to the top of your piece, a lot of times, like what I like to do is I will get my hollow forms like this one, and I decorate the top of it. So when you're decorating the top, do you guys want me to show you that one? Or are you good? I'll show you guys that, decorating the top of your hollow form. How does that sound? Setting a bezel or just setting. Okay. So usually I don't have it completely finished like this one, but I'll show you with this one just because they'll be easy. Oops. Put your hole in it. I want to make sure the surface is clean. Because with this, you can't really get up and under it. I just cleaned off the surface because I had this piece completely ready to go. Okay. Do I have a beautiful, oh, I do have something to put on here. Okay. So these are some of the decorations I love to do. If I was putting a bezel on here, I don't have to put a base plate on it because I already have a base plate. So I would just use a piece of my metal that's already, up and going. So I could do something like this. I have this little decoration like this made for the center. I do happen to know, so I could do something like this right on here, so this would look nice. I do happen to know that I'll probably end up melting. This is a beaded wire and it's really thin. So these are from India. And I just have to be so careful with these. So maybe what I'd want to do is build my own with a little thicker gauge, you know, which is with twisted wire. Grab my twisted wire. Solder my ends together. Get my scissors. See if I like this size, a little smaller, little smaller. Yeah, I try to start, you know, when I'm working like this, I try to work with the strongest material. I love that those little circles are done from India, but this is my own wire that I twisted. And I know it's nice and strong and durable. So for me, I was working on this all day today on all these little fussy things. All these little fussy pieces. I had fun today in my studio. Okay. Then what I'm going to want to do when I'm doing this small piece like this is I really have to get a marker on here so I can see it. Put it on the side. Get a little bit of easy. No, I'm going to get a little bit of hard, which I think I have hard on here. Here's some hard right here. Get a little bit of hard. That's what I want to use because I'm going to do another solder to it. I just want the tiniest of flames, the tiniest of solder pieces. Okay. I always dip it in the flux. So I have a nice surface. And then I'm just going to put it on, get it rounded, flatten it if you need to. There we go. Look at that. Okay. So now if I'm building this piece here, I'm going to flood the surface. I just have the dot on top. I'm going to just flood the surface with a, I could even do it easy at this point. Easy is messy and it's a different color. So if you're using easy, you just have to be careful. Medium is so close to sterling silver. So it's nice, you know, and so is hard, but medium is so close, it's almost the same color. So I'm actually, when I work with easy, I love it and I hate it. You know, it's the easiest when you're really getting into these unusual areas. Did you see how I just held down my solder to get this to flow? Now let me get my piece. Get this flowing. So I do a lot of work like this where I just get it flowing, dipping this in my flux. So now that this is already hot, you want to make sure that your base, even if I decided to let the solder flow on these pieces here, I would actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull this off, get this piece down first, because see how I just have to come from the edges of this? There we go. And this one is a little tougher to get to sit down. Now I need to bring my solder over here. This piece is a little bit more fragile. So I need everything really hot and I can go around the edges to get this next piece to stay down. There we go. How about that? So sometimes I do things in layers like this. Get it cooled. Voila. It's pretty, huh? And the hole is like on the inside of that flower. So I try to use flux when I can, because once I put this in the pickle, it's gonna be a nice one. You guys are gonna see it on one of my pieces when I have my jeweler sale coming up. So that's, you know, when you're putting things on the surface. So it's the same thing when I'm working with this big piece. If you guys see this hollow form that's in here, I actually got my whole piece together first, you know, put everything together, and it was not as interesting. This circle isn't as interesting, but then I, you know, brought pieces out to the side. So you can do a lot more with your piece to really trick it out, make your piece interesting, you know? So here I did all these. So I start with the center and I've got a couple bezels and a couple layers. So I get those down first because with this, you know, with this wire that I have around the sides, you know, I want to make sure that I can get the center hot without burning out that next piece, you know, so I just kind of flood it down, bring it outward. I can scratch it out with my scratch pen, but because I do a lot of flooding of solder, which is called tinning, I usually like to use a medium on the surface because you might be able to see it, you know, when you put liver sulfur on your work, when you put liver sulfur on your fine silver is a different color than your solder. It's a different color than your sterling silver. So, you know, for that kind of polishing. So if I'm going to do the tinning, which I love tinning, I'm going to have a whole, you know, I did a whole course in that. That's the next thing out, you know, but I am going to show just using medium with it. So I'd use medium. Does that make sense? I built a lot of these little tiny pieces, and this, like on the back of this bezel, this tiny one here, I just flood it with a medium, which is called tinning. So it's like, you know, the way you guys saw me do that is I just laid down a bunch of medium solder. Well, I laid down easy, but I'm only going to say medium because you guys want to use medium. So I lay it down, I flood it. So it's almost like another layer on top of your bezel. Then when I lay my pieces down on there, do you know what happens? It's pretty cool. It's like your solder, even though it's you know, it's a hardened liquid now, you know, it's hardened on the surface, it'll go up under your pieces. So your solder is always looking for a join to join. So when I laid these pieces on here, my solder now is going to flow up and under these pieces. So you pretty much won't see solder laying around on your piece. You know, it should be all under there. So it's kind of a cool thing, you know, just try some real standard ones first for success. Circles are the easier, medium size is the easiest. So maybe like this kind of a size is going to be the easiest in a hollow form. And, you know, if you're doing any cutouts in your hollow form, you want to get it cut out first, even though it's still in a larger square, then lay it onto your bezel. I forgot to mention that one. But, you know, also roll out your metal, get everything ready. But it's really good just to use some of your time, your first time, just to do a couple standard ones that are circles or squares or something easy. And then either do something small with a lot of undercuts or do something large with a lot of undercuts. And, you know, I know for me, it's like when I do something interesting that has all these undercuts on them, you know, people like it, people find it, people know, you know, if you're doing your authentic work, your authentic shapes, people can grab it and understand that. So it's kind of cool.